I never thought I'd be the guy standing in a hotel hallway with a bouquet in one hand and a small box in the other, only to watch my wife walk out of a room with someone else. But there I was. It was supposed to be a surprise. A weekend away, nothing fancy, just a quiet boutique hotel about 40 minutes outside the city. Somewhere peaceful. Heather liked places like that. Clean, private, a little upscale without being flashy. I booked the best room they had. Top floor, corner suite, big windows. I didn't tell her in advance. Figured it'd mean more that way. We'd been off lately, not fighting. Just flat. Like two people going through the motions. I thought maybe we just needed time. So I planned a weekend to reset things. No phones, no distractions. Just the two of us. I even stopped for flowers on the way, white lilies. She always said they calmed her. I had a small box in my coat pocket, too. Not a ring, just a bracelet. Something simple. Something to say, I still see you. I still care. I got to the hotel just after 5. The front desk clerk greeted me like I was checking into a spa. Called me Mr. Benton, handed over the key to room 403, and wished me a peaceful stay. I nodded, smiled, headed for the elevator. The hallway was quiet. That thick, carpeted kind of quiet. I turned right at the end of the hall, bouquet cradled in one arm, keycard ready in the other. My plan was to set everything up, flowers in a vase, wine chilled, music playing, and then call Heather and tell her to come meet me. Let her walk into something soft, something thoughtful. I was 3 doors from mine when the door to 405 opened. She stepped out first. Heather, my wife, wrapped in one of those white hotel robes, damp hair pulled back, laughing at something I couldn't hear. Her face was lit up, relaxed, happy, in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Then he followed. Younger than me, taller, athletic, that kind of overconfident posture you only get when you think the world owes you something. Same robe, same easy smile. He was holding a half-empty bottle of wine, her phone in his other hand. They both saw me at the same time. The hallway froze. Heather's smile vanished like someone had flipped a switch. Her hand dropped from his arm. She didn't speak. Neither did I. She looked like she'd been punched in the chest. But me? I just stood there. I didn't yell. Didn't ask who he was. Didn't demand answers. I just looked at her, really looked, and saw everything I needed to know. The lies. The choices. The fact that she wasn't mine anymore, and maybe hadn't been for a while. I turned before anyone said a word, walked down to my room, stepped inside, and gently set the flowers on the nightstand. The box with the bracelet? I dropped it in the trash. I didn't stay. I didn't even sit down. I walked out of the hotel the same way I came in, quiet, steady, alone. That was the night I stopped being her husband. I didn't go home right away. I sat in the parking lot of a gas station for almost an hour. The kind where the lights hum overhead and the air smells like burnt coffee and old rubber. I watched people come and go, a couple teenagers messing around with slushies, a guy in a delivery uniform eating a sandwich in his truck, a woman pumping gas while arguing with someone on speakerphone. The world kept moving, like nothing had happened. Eventually, I drove back to the house. Not our house. Not anymore. Just a building I paid for, filled with furniture she picked out. I pulled into the garage like I always did, opened the door with the same keypad code, and walked through the kitchen one last time. The lights were off. It was quiet. Heather wasn't home yet. Good. I went upstairs, pulled out a duffel bag, and started packing. Nothing dramatic. No smashing, no shouting, no scrawled note on the table. Just clothes, documents, my laptop, a few old photo prints I hadn't looked at in years. The kinds of things you grab when you know you're not coming back. I didn't bother with the shared closet. All hers now. There was a framed picture on the nightstand. Us, smiling on the Oregon coast. I took it out of the frame, slipped it in the bottom of my bag, and left the empty frame exactly where it was. When I was done, I stood in the hallway and looked around one last time. The house was so clean, so polished. It looked like a catalog, but it didn't feel like home. Hasn't in a long time, if I'm honest. I left quietly, locked the door behind me, drove to my brother Caleb's place across town. I didn't call first, didn't need to. He's the kind of guy who keeps a spare key under a rock and a cold beer in the fridge, just in case. When he opened the door and saw the duffel in my hand, he didn't say a word, just stepped aside and let me in. Spare room's made up, he said after a beat. Appreciate it. You want to talk about it? Not tonight. He nodded like he already knew. I slept harder than I expected that night. Didn't dream. Didn't toss. Just went out cold. Maybe my body knew it was finally done carrying what I hadn't wanted to admit for a long time. The next morning, I sat at Caleb's kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Was it someone? He asked quietly. I nodded. Jesus. She walked out of a hotel room, I said, with him. They didn't even see me coming. He didn't ask for details. Just said, so what now? I'm not going back. Caleb leaned back in his chair. You filing? Yeah. But I'm not fighting. She can keep the house, the car, whatever she wants. He raised an eyebrow. That's a lot to let go of. She already let go of me, I said. I just hadn't caught up yet. Later that day, I made the calls, found a mediator, booked the first appointment, sent Heather a single text. We both know this is done. Let's handle it clean. She replied an hour later. Okay, just that. No apology, no denial, no fight. I thought I'd feel angry, or relieved, or maybe vindicated. But I didn't feel much of anything, just tired. But sometimes peace doesn't come with a celebration. Sometimes it comes when you walk out of the fire and don't look back. It was done in 12 weeks. No lawyers, no mediation drama, no drawn-out battles over furniture or credit cards. Just a few quiet meetings, signatures on the dotted line, and a notary with bad breath saying, "Congratulations, you're free." Heather barely said a word through the whole thing. We sat across from each other in a quiet office with beige walls and muted carpet, like grief counseling disguised as real estate. She wore a Tim blazer, hair perfect, makeup soft. She looked like someone attending a job interview, not ending a marriage. When the paperwork hit the table, she picked up the pen like it weighed nothing and signed every page without blinking. She didn't ask for more. Didn't contest a thing. The house? Hers. The car? Hers. The savings? I kept what was in my separate account. She kept the joint one. I'd already moved out. I didn't want a damn thing she'd touched since that night. Before we left, she looked at me like she was waiting for something. "You're sure about this?" she asked, like it was me who'd been caught walking out of a hotel room with someone else. "I've never been more sure," I said. Then I stood up and walked out. That was the last time I saw her face for almost 2 years. She changed her last name back on social media, not legally, just online. I guess that helped her sell the story she told her friends. Whatever that was. Probably something soft. Something she could manage. We grew apart. Or he was emotionally distant. Doesn't matter. People believe what's easy. A few mutual friends reached out. Some tried to dig, subtle like. "You doing okay?" "I'm good." Was it mutual? Not really. But I didn't offer more. I wasn't interested in setting the record straight. Let her spin it however she wanted. I wasn't chasing truth in other people's mouths anymore. I was too busy working. Work saved me. Not in some dramatic, poetic way, just in the sense that I could focus on something I controlled. I took more contracts, hired new guys, pushed the business harder than I had in years, built something with my name on it, something that didn't need permission or approval or apologies. And you know what? It felt good. Some weekends I'd drive out past the city and just keep going. Windows down, music low, a burger and a paper wrapper on the passenger seat. Nothing deep, just air and space. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel lonely. Caleb checked in now and then. He never pried, never asked if I'd heard from Heather. He knew better than to bring up someone who chose someone else. And Heather? Well, from what I heard through the grapevine, she was doing just fine. Still living in the house. Still driving the same car. Still posting filtered pictures of wine glasses and weekend brunches. Looked like she landed on her feet. It didn't bother me. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew better. People like Heather always look fine. They know how to smile for the photo, how to dress the part, how to keep up the show. But I also knew something else. People like her don't pick lovers like that for no reason. That kind of man, smooth, flashy, too charming for his own good, never sticks around once the money runs out or the lights dim. She bet the house on someone who probably didn't even stay for breakfast. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had my name, my work, my quiet, my peace. And sometimes that's the cleanest break you can hope for. Time passed faster than I thought it would. It's funny how people warn you about the silence after a divorce, like it's something dangerous. But for me, it was the most honest sound I'd heard in years. No tension in the air. No forced small talk in the mornings. No walking into rooms wondering which version of her I was going to get that day. Just quiet. And that quiet gave me space to work. I poured everything into the business. Long days, early mornings, late nights. I took on jobs I normally would have passed off. Got my hands dirty again. Built a new crew, a new process, a new standard. Within the first year, we were booked 3 months out, then 6. Then I stopped keeping track because I didn't have to worry about where the next check was coming from. Work gave me back my confidence. That part of myself that used to be sharp, focused, came back. Not overnight, but steadily. I moved out of Caleb's place after 6 months. Rented a house not far from a lake. Nothing flashy, just quiet and solid. Something that felt like mine. I started sleeping better, eating better, thinking clearer. And Heather? She was a ghost. We had no reason to speak. No kids. No shared assets. No loose threads. Just a few legal signatures and a life left behind. I didn't look her up. Didn't check in. Didn't need to. But life has a way of keeping small windows open. even after you've locked all the doors. It was Caleb's wife, Jill, who first mentioned her again. We were at their place for dinner, maybe 2 years after the divorce. Steak on the grill, wine on the table, music playing low in the background. Nothing heavy, just life, just normal. At some point, Jill leaned over to Caleb and said, "You didn't tell him?" He raised his eyebrows. "Tell him what?" Jill turned to me. "Heather, she's not doing great." I set my fork down. Not angry, just curious. "What do you mean?" Jill glanced at Caleb, then back at me. "She still talks to me sometimes. Out of habit, I guess. Not often, but the last time we spoke, she seemed off. Said she was having financial trouble. Something about Brandon. Brandon, that was the name. The guy from the hallway. The robe. The bottle of wine. The one who smiled like he belonged next to her. He moved in after you left," Jill said. "She told me he had big business ideas. Said he had contacts, clients, plans. Talked a big game. I didn't say anything, just waited. But he burned through his money fast. Partied, traveled, blew it all trying to launch something. Then, when that dried up, he started borrowing from her. Caleb cut in, and she let him." Jill nodded. "She said it was just until his next investment came through. But it never did. So she took out a second mortgage on the house. That hit me harder than I expected." "That house was paid off," I said. "Not anymore," Jill said quietly. "He left a few months ago. Disappeared. Blocked her on everything. No contact." Caleb leaned back in his chair. "So she's stuck." "Worse," Jill said. "The bank's coming for the house." The room fell quiet for a second. No one toasted. No one laughed. Just the sound of the wind moving through the trees outside. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sorry for her, either. What I felt was something quieter. Like a deep, tired sigh in the soul. She had everything, and she traded it for promises. Now she had nothing. And I was sitting here, eating a steak grilled by my brother, drinking good wine, and sleeping well at night. That wasn't revenge. But it sure felt like justice. It was a Wednesday. Middle of the week, middle of the afternoon. I had just gotten back from a site visit. Mud on my boots, clipboard in the truck, half a cup of cold coffee still sitting in the holder. I pulled into the driveway like I always did, keyed open the door, and set my stuff down without thinking. Routine, calm, normal. Then someone knocked. Not rang. Knocked. Fast, hard, urgent. I opened the door, and there she was. Heather. If I hadn't known it was her, I might not have recognized her. The hair was unwashed and tied back with no real effort. Her eyes looked smaller somehow, like everything had pulled inward. She'd lost weight, but not the kind people compliment you on. She was wearing an oversized hoodie and jeans that looked slept in. For a moment, neither of us said anything. She stared at me like she wasn't sure if she hated me or needed me. Maybe both. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I didn't answer. I stepped aside, left the door open, and walked into the kitchen. If she wanted to talk, she could talk. I wasn't offering tea. She followed, closed the door behind her, and stood just inside like she wasn't sure she belonged there. "You're doing well," she said finally, glancing around. "Yep, this is nice," she added, like we were old friends catching up. "Cozy." I didn't respond. I just leaned against the counter and waited. She paced a little, rubbed her arms like the room was colder than it was. "Brandon left," she said. "Took off. Didn't even leave a note. Just gone." I nodded. "I know." Her eyes snapped up. "You know? My brother's wife talks to you, remember?" She looked away. "He lied," she said. "About everything. The money, the business. He just wanted what I could give him." She paused, like that was my cue to say I told you so. I didn't. "I gave him everything," she whispered. "Everything I had. The houses," she stopped. "Swallowed. The bank's taking it. I have nowhere to go." Still, I didn't speak. She stepped closer. "I'm not here to beg, Mark. I need help. You left me with nothing. You could have warned me." That was the moment. Right there, that twist in her voice. Like somehow all of this was my fault. Like the choices she made, the people she trusted, the lies she told. They didn't belong to her anymore. They were mine to carry. "I didn't leave you with nothing," I said. "I left you with the house, the car, the bank accounts. You lost the rest all on your own." Her face tightened. "So what? You're just going to stand there? You're just going to watch me fall apart?" I looked at her for a long time. Not with hate, not even anger, just distance. "If you'd walked in here and said you were in trouble," I said, "and asked for help, I might have considered it." Might have. She blinked. "But instead, you came in pointing fingers, blaming me, demanding something you gave away. I gave it to the wrong person. You gave it to 2 of them." That shut her up. She stood there, arms folded, jaw clenched. For a moment I thought she might cry, but she didn't. Maybe she didn't have the energy left for tears. "You used to care about me," she said finally, voice quiet. "I did," I replied. "You used to care about me, too." Silence. Then I nodded toward the door. You should go now. She stood there for another second, hoping, maybe, or just not wanting to face the world waiting outside. But she turned, slowly, walked out without another word. I didn't watch her leave. I just locked the door behind her. She didn't call again. No texts. No emails. No second visit. I thought maybe she would. Maybe she'd come back with a different tone, calmer, humbler, actually asking instead of accusing. But she didn't. And after a few weeks, I stopped wondering. Jill told me later that Heather moved in with a cousin 2 towns over. Small place, 1 bedroom. She was sleeping on a couch, job hunting, trying to start over. But starting over gets a lot harder when you've already burned the bridges you thought you'd never need again. The house she fought so casually to keep? Gone. Bank took it. I heard she left behind most of what we'd built together, furniture, art, even the photos. She didn't have the stomach to pack it up. And Brandon? Nobody's seen him since. Last Jill heard, he took off to California. Some tech startup that probably doesn't exist. Left behind unpaid credit cards, a few angry messages on Heather's voicemail, and a note scrawled on a napkin that just said, it wasn't working. That's what she traded a marriage for. An idea. A thrill. A promise with no substance behind it. It didn't feel good, hearing all this. It didn't make me smile. It didn't make me want to raise a glass and toast her downfall. No part of it brought me satisfaction, but it did bring something else. Closure. Because for so long after the divorce, people would say, you're being too soft. You should have taken her to court, gotten your share. But I always said the same thing, let her have what she thinks she wants. Let time do the rest. And time did. Turns out, there's no better mirror than consequences. She used to walk through restaurants like she owned the room, confident, radiant, magnetic. She knew how to smile just enough to make people lean in, how to drop compliments like hooks. She didn't just enjoy attention, she needed it. And now? Jill said she barely makes eye contact anymore. Keeps to herself. No more heels. No more manicures. Just someone trying to look invisible in a world she once thought revolved around her. And me? I was finally at peace. The house I lived in now wasn't big or flashy, but it was mine. Every room felt clean, not just tidy, but honest. I'd wake up, open the windows, make coffee in silence, and sit on the back porch watching the wind move through the trees. Nothing extraordinary, but it didn't have to be. Peace doesn't need an audience. The business was solid. My crew respected me. Jobs kept coming. I had more than enough. And more importantly, I needed less. I wasn't looking to fill a hole. I wasn't chasing validation or some fantasy version of happiness. I just wanted quiet, honest days, and I had them. Sometimes Caleb would bring up Heather in passing, usually something Jill mentioned. And I'd nod, but I wouldn't ask for more. Not out of spite. I just didn't want her voice in my head anymore. She made her choices. I made mine. And in the end, she lost the house, the man, the money, and the mask. I lost her. And that, it turns out, was the best trade I ever made. It was around the holidays when she showed up again. Not at my door, not this time, but around the edges of my life. Subtle, like smoke creeping under a door. It started with a text from Jill. Heads up, Heather asked if she could join us for Christmas Eve. I read the message twice, then replied, your house, your call. But Jill already knew what I meant. She says she just wants to see people. Says she misses family. I didn't respond to that one. That was the thing about Heather. She knew how to test the water without ever stepping in too fast. She wouldn't dare call me, not after how our last conversation ended. But she still remembered who made the holidays feel warm, who kept traditions, who made things look like a home. I knew why she wanted back in. Not for me. Not even for Jill or Caleb. For the feeling. Because loneliness in December hits different. I didn't go to Christmas Eve that year. I spent it at my place. Kept the lights low, jazz on the radio, cooked a meal big enough for 2 and ate half of it alone. Not out of sadness. Just out of peace. I didn't want to share a room with old stories. I didn't want to be polite across a table from someone who once looked at me like I didn't matter. Jill called the next day. She came, she said. Sat quiet most of the night. Brought cheap wine and some cookies from a store that closed at 6. Did she say anything? Not much. Just that she was trying. She didn't really talk to anyone. I think she just wanted to be seen. That made sense. Heather had always lived for the reflection, for how things looked from the outside. Now that she had no one to dress up for, no table to host, no name beside hers on holiday cards, she was trying to borrow old warmth like it still belonged to her. But the thing about walking out of someone's life, really walking out, is that you don't get to choose when the door opens again. It doesn't. And people don't forget what it felt like to be left. A few weeks later, I ran into one of her old friends, Chelsea, at a supply store. We exchanged the usual small talk. Then she said, you know, Heather's different now. Yeah, she's not who she was. I think she wants to go back to being that person. But she trailed off. But the audience is gone, I said. Chelsea smiled sadly. Exactly. I don't know if Heather ever understood that part. That what she lost wasn't just a house or a man or a reputation. It was access. Access to the life she took for granted. The dinners. The holidays. The quiet trust people used to have around her. She burned it for a feeling. Now the feeling's gone. And so is everything that came with it. I never blocked her number. Never erased her name. I didn't need to. Because she knew better than to try and come back through the front door. That life, our life, didn't exist anymore. Not because I slammed the door, but because I opened it, and she walked right past me into someone else's arms. And some things, you don't get to undo. It was late March the next time I saw her. The kind of cold that lingers even when the sun's out, trees bare, wind sharp, the season caught between winter and spring. I was locking up the job trailer at a site just outside town when I saw her standing by my truck. At first, I didn't recognize her. She had on a long coat that looked 2 sizes too big, a scarf wrapped tight around her neck, and a hat pulled low like she didn't want the world to see her face. Or maybe she didn't want to see the world's face looking back. "Heather," I said flatly. She turned. Her eyes were red, and not just from the wind. "Mark, please don't walk away." I didn't move. "I tried everything," she said, voice trembling. "Jobs, applications, temp work. I'm trying. I really am. But the money's gone. My credit's ruined. I'm staying on a friend's couch, and I just..." She stopped, swallowed, then looked at me with something I hadn't seen in her in years. Real fear. "I have nothing left," she said. "Not even pride." I didn't speak. I waited. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. I wrote it down. Everything I want to say. Everything I should have said. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." I took the envelope. Not to keep it, just so she'd stop shaking. "I made the wrong choice," she said. "I thought he loved me. I thought I'd be happy, but I wasn't. I haven't been happy since I left you." I looked at her, quiet. She waited, hoping. You can see it in her posture, that last thread of belief that maybe I'd take pity, that maybe I'd reach out, pull her back, rescue her from herself. I didn't. "You didn't just leave me, Heather," I said. "You left everything I was building with you. You left when it got quiet, when it wasn't exciting anymore. You left because you thought you could do better. And when that blew up, you remembered I was the man who kept the lights on." She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised a hand. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter, but I'm not your safety net." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I just thought," I nodded slowly, "that I'd still be here." "I know." She stood there for another moment, hoping silence would turn to sympathy. But all I gave her was honesty. "If you'd come to me a year ago, sat down like a person, owned it, asked for help maybe I would have tried." She looked up at me, eyes wide, hopeful. "But you didn't," I said. "You came with blame, then with shame, never once with real respect." Her shoulders dropped. I stepped around her, opened the truck door, and paused. "For what it's worth," I said, "I hope you find something real, not someone to save you, just something solid, something honest." She nodded, slowly, like she wasn't used to words that didn't come with strings. I got in the truck and closed the door. As I pulled away, I watched her in the mirror, standing still, envelope in hand, alone in a construction lot with nowhere to go. I didn't hate her. I just didn't need her anymore. And that was the difference. I never opened the letter. It sat on the kitchen counter for a week, still sealed, edges a little bent from where she clutched it so tight. Some nights, I'd pass by it on my way to bed and pause, thinking maybe I'd read it. Maybe there was something in there I needed to hear, but I already knew how it ended. I'd lived it. One morning I tossed it in the trash, still unopened, not out of anger, just because there was nothing left in her words that could change where we stood. I didn't need to read her regrets. I'd already watched her live them. After that last conversation in the job site lot, Heather vanished again. I didn't see her around town, didn't hear from Jill, didn't get a knock or a call or some dramatic final message. She just faded. That's how it works when the show ends and the spotlight cuts out. She'd burned through everything: money, friends, trust. And now, even her excuses were gone. Jill said she moved out of state, some smaller place near her sister. Apparently took a job in retail. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep her head above water. She doesn't talk about the past. Not to Jill, not to her cousin, not to anyone. Probably because the story makes less and less sense the more you say it out loud. I left a loyal husband for a man who drained me and vanished. Then I tried to crawl back, and he wouldn't even open the door. Not exactly a crowd pleaser, but I wasn't telling that story either, because by now, there was nothing left to say. I didn't just survive her leaving, I outgrew it. The business was thriving. I'd hired 2 new foremen, bought a second truck, and finally stopped doing every job myself. I wasn't hustling anymore. I was leading. The kind of work that builds legacy, not just income. Guys trusted me. Clients respected me. I'd earned it. My house was quiet, clean, and mine. The kind of quiet that felt earned. I could wake up on a Sunday, open the windows, drink my coffee, and not feel like anything was missing. Not even her. Especially not her. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever remarry. I tell them the truth. I'm not looking, but I'm open to something real. I've learned what love isn't. And now I know better than to go chasing the kind that only works in the warm light of someone else's approval. You can't fix a person who sees your loyalty as weakness. You can't save someone who only shows up when they're sinking. And you can't build a life with someone who always has one foot out the door, just in case. Heather thought I was the backup plan, but I was the foundation. And when she walked away, she didn't just lose me. She lost the version of herself that was worth something. The version that made people lean in, that made holidays feel full, that was proud to stand beside me. That version of her died the minute she closed the door behind her and followed another man out of a hotel room. Now, she's just a woman with a fading memory of who she used to be. And I'm the man she underestimated, still standing, still rising, still free. Spring came early this year. I noticed it one morning as I sat on the back porch with my coffee. The air was warmer than it should have been, and the trees lining the yard had that first soft hint of green. Birds were already busy, chasing each other across the fence line like winter had never happened. I breathed it in, deep and quiet. That's the thing no one tells you about starting over. It doesn't begin with fireworks. It starts on an ordinary day. A cup of coffee. A moment of silence. A sunrise that catches you off guard. You don't even realize you've turned the page until the past feels like a story someone else lived. It had been over 2 years since the divorce. 2 years since I packed a bag and walked out of the house we used to call ours. Since I watched Heather step out of that hotel room, and the whole illusion shattered in front of me. And I hadn't just survived it. I'd outlived it. The business was the strongest it had ever been. I wasn't chasing work anymore. It came to me. I hired smart, paid fair, treated my guys like family. I'd built something real. Not a fantasy. Not an escape. Just good, honest work that put food on the table and peace in my chest. The house felt lived in now. Mine. I'd painted the walls, replaced the couch, built a new deck out back. I grilled on weekends, sometimes with Caleb, sometimes just by myself. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. But I wasn't alone, either. A few months ago, I met someone. Her name's Erin. Works in non-profit housing. Sharp mind, calm eyes. The kind of woman who listens more than she speaks and doesn't dress anything up just to make it easier to swallow. We met at a supplier event, of all places. She laughed at a joke I made, not a polite laugh, but a real one, and it felt like standing in sunlight after months of overcast. We've kept it simple. Coffee, walks, a few dinners. No pressure, no masks. I haven't told her everything yet. She doesn't know the whole story about Heather, but I think she understands more than I say. She looks me in the eye when she talks. She doesn't flinch at silence. And she never asks me to be someone I'm not. And maybe that's enough for now. You don't rush things that are real. A couple weeks back, Erin asked me, "Do you ever think about the past?" I smiled. Only long enough to be grateful I'm not stuck there. Because the truth is, I don't need closure anymore. Don't need justice. Don't need revenge. Life handled all that for me. Heather got exactly what she earned. So did I. Some people lose everything and still think the world owes them more. Others lose something and realize it was never worth keeping. That was me. I lost a woman who could lie to my face and walk away without blinking. A woman who saw my consistency as boring, my loyalty as weakness, and my quiet love as something disposable. And in return, I found a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Stronger, sharper, freer. This new chapter? It's not about proving her wrong. It's about never letting anyone like her have that kind of access to me again. And that's the kind of peace no one can take away.